Hey guys, welcome back to another candle review of products sent in by one of you subscribers. This is one of my favorite type of videos to do. You guys know that I've been doing these fairly frequently, so I try to stay up on all of them as quickly as I can, and I really do enjoy doing these. So today is pretty interesting. This will be the first time I've had a candle sent to me from Great Britain, so this will be a first for me. So I am excited to get going on this and see what we're working with here. Thank you all for being here. If you are new to this channel, my name is Wade Thomas. I'm the owner of Black Tie Bar and Candle Company. And here on this channel, we talk about making candles, running a candle business, candle reviews, and other product reviews as well. If any of that content interests you at all, then please consider subscribing to this channel. I post at least weekly, often twice a week. We cover a lot of different candle making and running a business type of topics on this channel. If you wouldn't mind, also give this video a thumbs up by hitting the like button below. That really helps with the channel, but it also helps to ensure that YouTube makes sure you don't miss these videos. Before we get started, a couple quick things I'd like to mention on all of these candle review videos. If you've never seen one of these before, they are completely voluntary. These candles are sent in to me for review on the channel, and we're going to talk about, we do some of the unboxing. We're going to take a look at the jars, the labels, the design, talk about the fragrance, and then of course I will spend another week or two testing these candles. And here on the same video, I will cut back in and talk about how the testing went. What I thought about the hot throw and how the wicking was and everything about overall performance. And then also provide any other positive comments and feedback, as well as offer any potential tips I might have if there are any. But also just a reminder that the whole purpose of this is just to be positive and constructive. We're all part of the same candle community. So I hope you guys enjoy this video and all of these reviews for that matter. And if you are interested in checking out the other reviews, I have an entire playlist on these candle making reviews, so feel free to check them out whenever you'd like. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that if you are interested yourself in sending me any products to review, to talk about on this channel and provide some feedback on, just let me know in the comments section below, and then I will follow up with you and we will go from there. So as I mentioned, this candle is coming to me, or candles potentially, are coming to me from Great Britain. The candle company name is, and I'm not sure how to pronounce it, it could be a couple options, a Haymanot Candle Company or Haymanot Candle Company. I'm not sure which way it's pronounced. Actually, both of those could be wrong. But either way, that is who we're reviewing today. And again, they are coming from Great Britain. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these out of the package, out of the main shipping box first. Okay, so yeah, we're provided two different candles here. And like I said, I'm not sure if it's Haymanot or Haymanot and Company, but we have two different candles here. Both are in their own individual boxes. They've got labels on the outside of each box. One is in a craft, kind of your standard brown craft box. Another one's in a black and white product box. If I had to guess, the smaller one's a single wick candle, and this other one's probably a double or triple wick candle. But as you can see here, one is orange and the other is lavender. So very simple, straightforward, traditional fragrances. I happen to love orange, so that's a definite hit for me. I love everything orange, lemon. I really just love everything citrus, to be honest. And then the other one is lavender. Lavender is an interesting one for me. I've always joked around that lavender smells like kitty litter to me. It's just, and maybe that's because so many kitty litters are fragranced with lavender. But lavender's always been a funny one to me. I used to not be able to stand lavender when I was growing up, but it's grown on me. A couple of my favorite fragrances that I mess around with here myself are lavender-based fragrances. So I love lavender with eucalyptus and with mint and with vanilla. This one says straight up lavender, so we will see how it goes. If I had to choose, I imagine the orange is going to be my favorite, but who knows? Who knows? Okay, we're going to start with, actually, you know what? We're going to start with the lavender. I changed my mind. Okay, well, I haven't gotten too far, but I love the lid. It's got kind of a sandy beach looking feel to it. So let's go ahead and get this guy out. So this is a tumbler style glass. Of course, the product label has their company name, lavender. It matches the same one on the box. So I think that's always a nice little touch whenever you can keep things consistent with your labeling. So you know what you're getting when you open a box and everything is just consistent. Plus, it just makes it easier on you as a candle maker and running a business. If you can get one product label per fragrance and use that same label in your jars and the boxes and everything that's tied to that product, it just makes things a lot easier for you. But you can see it's not a dyed candle, it's a natural colored candle. I don't know what wax type we're working with here. There was nothing to let me know, so I'm gonna make some guesses potentially, best effort, but I'm not sure. I won't be able to really fact check myself. We're just gonna talk about overall feel, look, some guesses, and then of course the performance of the candle. Go ahead and open this up. This has some actual lavender and some other little herbs or dried flowers on top. This is a good opportunity. Let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about my personal opinions on things, additional items inside your candle. I'm never really a huge fan of it. I usually do not recommend it for a couple reasons, and those reasons will vary. Some of those reasons will depend on where you're located. So I think the first reason is the legal reason. You have increased liability whenever you have a product with other things that could potentially catch fire. So here in the United States, it's very difficult to get something like this covered under insurance. So if you're transparent with your insurance company about the product you're making and you explain it to them, they might have a hard time covering it. So legal reasons is one thing that makes using additional items on the top of your candle potentially problematic. But again, that depends on where your business is run. The other issue though for me is more from a safety perspective. So I'm not a fan of using too many herbs and dried flowers and things like that in your candle. There are candle safe additives that like embeds and little crystals and mica powders and things like that, which are totally fine to use in your candles. Most of them are made to do that anyways, and they're not gonna cause any safety issues. They could potentially clog your wicks if you're using too much, but other than that, they're fine to use. Ones with actual flowers and dried herbs make me a little bit nervous just because they can catch fire. So it's not for me to say, right or wrong about what you can or can't put in your candles. Again, this is just an educational channel sharing my opinions on things. So I would just be careful and offer a warning to anyone that is wanting to use these other products in your candles to make sure you're doing due diligence with your testing. Test your products for safety first and performance second. And then of course, definitely check with your laws wherever your business is based and make sure you're on the up and up. Just make sure that you're providing a safe product and it's a product that you can cover and be prepared to provide coverage for. So with that being said, it looks very nice. It looks great. Like I said, it's got actual lavender in it and you can actually smell that. So mixed with the fragrance oil, this is a fabulous smelling candle. Like I said, lavender's grown on me over the years, so I used to not like it. Now I'm actually growing quite fond of it. As far as the wax goes, I see a little bit of frosting and the color of it. So the color combined with the frosting and the feel of it, if I had to guess, I would say it's a wax, kind of like a 464, golden wax 464. Which is a soy wax. It could be a 444, or it could be a wax that I'm not familiar with. Again, this is coming from Europe, and there are a lot of waxes there that are not here and vice versa. So it could be a wax that I'm not familiar with. But to give you a little bit of perspective and idea, it feels and looks a lot like 464. I know the camera's probably not picking up the frosting as much. The only hesitation I have that it may not be 464 is it doesn't have perfect jar adhesion, and 464 normally does. That's the only thing that has me wondering. But again, it is a beautiful candle and it smells great as well. Just take into consideration some of the feedback I provided about the items that are in the candle. Let's talk about the wick real quick. I am not sure. It's a cotton wick. I can't tell if this is like an LX wick or maybe it's a Premier wick, or this could be just a straight cotton wick. I'm not real sure. Like I said, I didn't really get any information about what type of materials we're dealing with here, so I'm just making my best guesses, but I'm not entirely sure on the wick, and I don't want to mess with it too much till I've got a chance to burn it. So maybe after burning it, I'll have a little bit better idea of what the wick is. I'm gonna go ahead and set this one aside. Let's move on to the next candle. So again, this one is orange. Here on this channel, we've done crazy names, we've done theme-based candles, we've done abstract names, and this one is very simple, straightforward, lavender and orange. This is my favorite thing about doing these reviews, is every one of these reviews is so different. At least for me, they are. Every candle looks different, the naming conventions are different, the fragrances are different, the way they perform is different. So I really love doing this. Okay, so let's take a look at the candle here. Awesome color. So this actually reminds me of a candle like, that you would see on a shelf at a retail store. So not only do I love orange, but I think they did a great job with the label and the colors. So this one, they actually decided to dye the wax. Now, this is a larger style jar of the other one. So this is, again, another tumbler style jar. Let's go ahead and take a look inside. The lid is different. The other one had kind of a sand, almost beach wooden top. This one has kind of a copper or rose gold metal lid. Okay, so interesting. On this one, we actually have a slice of dried orange. So You guys can see that in both cameras, which once again looks super nice. I'm always hesitant about myself putting things in my candle, but I know that a lot of people do. And so it is a nice touch, and it looks really, really nice. Kind of curious on how this is gonna burn, if it will impact the burn at all. I'm not sure, to be honest. But aesthetically, it looks nice. Let's talk about the wax a little bit again. I'm assuming it's the same type of wax as the other candle. I think that just makes sense. Most people aren't sending me candles with different waxes, but I think it's a slightly different wax than what I thought before. I really don't think this is a 464 wax. I'm not seeing frosting on this, but I am seeing some jump lines. So I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but jump lines are where the wax has gotten hard and dried very quickly. So it cooled very quickly, and then it leaves these little lines on the inside of the jar. Like I said, it could be really hard to see in the camera. It's very common with paraffin waxes. So this doesn't tell me what type of wax they're using. The other one with the frosting makes me think it's a soy wax. This one I would lean more towards a type of paraffin wax or a parasoy. Either way, one thing I did like about this one too is not only is the candle wax orange itself, but the wick has soaked up some of that as well. So the wick actually has a little bit of an orange touch to it, or an orange tint to it, which I really think is fun. I think I lied to you all. So I mentioned I was gonna like the orange better than the lavender. I think I changed my mind on this one. I actually think I preferred this lavender, and maybe it's because I've had so many orange scents recently, not just from other candle makers, but from myself included, that the lavender is a little bit of a change up for me. I am equally excited to try them both, but I am intrigued by the fact that I'm actually preferring the lavender a little bit more on this one. So things for me to focus on during the testing part of these candles, and that is how they burn overall, just like I would do in any candle review video, but also how they're going to perform with the dried herbs and fruit on top of the candle. So that is going to be my focal points during the testing, which of course we're going to focus on the hot throw and the wicking and the overall performance, but I really want to pay extra attention to how these burn with these dried herbs and dried orange slice on the top. That aside, they are beautiful candles and they smell fabulous, and I really like the labels and the packaging on both. I'm going to step away, do some testing. I'll be back here in just a second to let you know how that testing went. Thanks for sticking around this long, and I'll be right back. Okay, well, change of scenery, but I am back after getting a chance to test out these candles. And so we're just gonna go ahead and dive right in. So over that week and a half or so of testing, I did test both candles in several areas, several different rooms, several different spaces, just to give everything kind of a fair shake. And that way it's easier to compare the hot throw of each one. And then also if one is suffering from any kind of drafts or anything like that, this is probably the most consistent and fair way to judge these candles. So I did mix them up and put them in different locations for the whole testing period. Let's go ahead and start with the one that had the actual dried lavender and flowers on the top. Now, the first thing I'll say is I had no issues with the dried flowers, the dried herbs. Now, while it's not something that I really recommend, I personally only want to use candle approved materials in my products. There are little candle safe gems and jewels and stones and things like that you can put, little embeds in your candle that are totally fine. I'm not too fond of using dried flowers and herbs just because they can catch fire. They are a fire hazard, especially when you've got an open flame in the jar. That's just a personal preference. But again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not an insurance agent. I don't really want to get into that, but I would just caution that anyone that wants to do that, definitely just speak to someone that you can actually trust and get good legal advice from. That being said, these did not pose any issue for me when I was actually burning the candle. And actually, as the candle burned down, they really kind of settled into the melt pool, and they really never got too close to the flame. So now let's talk about the performance of the actual candle, how it burned, the hot throw. I have to say that this is a small candle, so I'm not expecting significant hot throw, at least that fills a large room. So I did start this off in a small bedroom, and then I also moved it to a bathroom area and then to a larger room just to see. I did get a little bit of a hot throw in the small bathroom, but that is really the extent that I got much hot throw from this particular candle. I didn't get a whole lot of carry on the hot throw. And there could be several reasons for that. It could be this particular fragrance oil with this particular wax. And if you recall from the first part of this video, wax types weren't actually provided, so there's no way for me to really tell you. I will just say that the hot throw wasn't significant on this particular wax. It could be the oil, it could be the wax, and it could be the wicking, which we'll talk about here in just a second as well. But it was a fairly light fragrance. As far as the wicking goes, I actually think this wick was probably the most appropriate sized out of the two. Kind of did get a long stalk, and it did develop quite a bit of a mushroom, but it was a pretty safe looking burning candle the entire time. The flame never got unusually large. It never got too hot. The glass never got too hot. In fact, the melt pool really went to the edge of the glass, but barely. It just touched it, and it never really consumed it all the way, which is great because you're creating a very safe burning candle. So the wick size was, I think, appropriate, other than a large mushroom that it did get a couple hours into the burn. But you know, sometimes that happens, and that does not make it a poor performing or a poorly wicked candle. It just means that those customers definitely need to trim those wicks accordingly. But the wicking, I think, was pretty good overall. I don't know entirely what wick type it was. I want to say a cord wick by the amount of mushroom it got, but I just don't think it is. It was more like an LX wick or something like that. And so other than kind of the faint hot throw on this one, I don't really think there's much to change. I don't want to talk about the dried flowers part. That's up to you all how you want to handle that. But other than that, in the faint hot throw, this one burned pretty good. I don't really have any major complaints with this one. You know, one thing you could consider trying with this candle is a different wick type. Because even though the size seemed to be appropriate, if you experiment with some different wick types, you might end up with a better, a more efficient wick for this particular wax. And the reason I say that is that wicks and wax form this combustion process, and certain wick types work better with certain wax types, and that makes it a more efficient burn. And so you might have the best wick size for this particular wick, but you may have better luck with a different wick type entirely. Because I don't know what type of wax it is, I can't tell you for sure. But if it's the wax that I think it might be, I would try a Eco Wick or a CD Wick and then go from there. But let's go ahead and move on to this next candle. And the next candle was the orange candle. So it had that dried orange peel at the top of the candle as well. So I'm not going to address that aspect of, again, everything I said about the last one, I would just say about this. This one, though, felt like an entirely different wax to me. It may not be, but this one felt much more like a paraffin blend wax. It had a firmer texture to it. The way it kind of adhered to the side and had jump lines on the side, if you remember me talking about that in the first part of the video. The way this burned, this really feels like a paraffin candle, or at least a heavy paraffin soy blend. And so if that's true, that means they sent two different candles with two different waxes. I don't know if that is true, unfortunately, so that's just my best guess. Perhaps they can chime in and let us know a little bit more specifics in the comment section if they would like to, but that is my best guess. Now this one was interesting to me. Well, first of all, before we talk about wicking, let's talk about the hot throw. The hot throw was a little bit better on this one, and there's a couple reasons. One is probably because it is a larger jar. Two, if it is indeed a paraffin wax, those tend to throw a little bit better. So this one expectedly did perform a little bit better on the hot throw, but I would still say it was average at best. I didn't get great hot throw on either one of these candles, but it was definitely better on the orange one. Now, I'm not sure the amount of fragrance that was used in either one of these candles, and the fact that they're two different waxes, I would expect you need to use potentially two different fragrance amounts for each one of these. One thing that could be true, and again, I don't know, but I'm wondering if they could have used a higher percentage of fragrance oil in these two candles. If they used somewhere between 7, 8, 9, or 10%, then that should be plenty, good enough to get a good hot throw. But there are a lot of different waxes and a lot of different suppliers and a lot of different candle makers that, especially if you're new, you've heard different things. You've heard things from all the way up to 10% and as low as 3%. And the truth is it really varies by your wax type. There is a potential chance that maybe these only used a 3 or 4 or 5% fragrance load, and maybe that's the reason that the hot throw was kind of faint on these. There's several factors it could be, and again, it could just be the wax. In regards to the wicking, this one struggled a little bit more. It kind of had an interesting effect, and it's an effect that I have seen before. When I first lit this one, it was overwicked. It had a very large, tall, sooty wick that I could not get to settle down. I had pre-trimmed it to 1/4 inch, and I just couldn't get this one to settle down. But ironically, it was also tunneling, which is unusual combination. And not tunneling significantly. I mean, it still ended up being a fine burning candle after we got 3 or 4 burns into it. But with being how large the wick was, you wouldn't expect it to leave any wax on the side. I do think this has a really high melt point wax in it. Again, making me think this is a harder, firmer paraffin wax. That's probably the reason it was having some of that tunneling effect early on, but it was definitely overwicked at the beginning. However, and it continued to be overwicked for the first few burns for sure. But about halfway through, maybe a little before that, things changed. The flame size reduced, and it almost became like it was struggling a little bit. The mushroom went away, and then we ended up with a really tall stalk. And when you get a really, really tall stalk, and by stalk what I mean is where the wax was going down, the wick was staying pretty high above the wax. The wick wasn't curling, the wick wasn't disintegrating as it went down, it wasn't being consumed properly, so it left a pretty tall stalk on the wick after it was burning. And what that causes is a long way for the fuel to travel to be consumed. And so when that happens, you will end up with weak flames that struggle to hold on, and sometimes it's hard to get that full melt pool. And that is what happened about halfway through, or again, like I said, a little before halfway through on this particular candle. That could also be the reason the hot throw wasn't as strong as it could be, is it really wasn't achieving a good, rich melt pool. Now, there's a couple ways we can tackle that, and actually, I think it's probably a good idea to consider this anyways, just because of the weird behavior of the wick being too big at first and then too small. All of those things usually point to the wrong type of wick used for this particular wax. Again, I don't know what wick it is. I want to say an LX wick potentially, but I don't know for sure. But I would certainly try some other wick types. Consider trying a RRD wick or a HTP wick. Without knowing more about the wax, I'm kind of limited on what recommendations I would give, but those are where I would probably start. What I would honestly do is probably get several sample packs of different wick types and try them all and see which one tends to burn the best for you. I think that will solve some of your inconsistent wick behavior as well as improve your hot throw. In the lavender candle, you may consider a curling wick. That will help keep the flame profile a little better and consume the wick, and it will consume the wick a little bit better as it's burning. So those were my overall thoughts on these two candles. I really like the look of them and the label and the packaging. I thought it was really good and consistent branding. I think you're showing off a ton of creativity here. I like the variety. I like the fact that there's 2 different sizes, but they're the same jar, just offered in different sizes. There's a lot of things I really like about these 2 candles. And I love your ambition. I love your creativity. I think all of that is just flying out of the jar. And so I give you props on that for sure. And I also want to say thank you for sending these in for review. And for me to check out here on the channel. I really appreciate that. Hopefully some of the tips I gave you about maybe trying some different wick types and sampling some different wicks might really help you out with a few of these potential struggles. Now again, these are only 2 candles that I've tested. I haven't tested any of the other candles, and they may all be burning perfectly. But out of these 2, I think the only thing I would focus on would be trying some other wicks. So thanks again for stopping by, and I will see you next time.